welcome to a cozy little fall reading vlog. Today is October 22nd, and I thought it'd be fun to spend the next week or so, pretty much up until Halloween, doing some fun reading and bringing you along, hopefully also maybe doing some fun kind of spooky activities as well. It's just crazy that October is already kind of coming to an end and Halloween season is already coming to an end, so I really want to make the most of it by doing some nice cozy reading and kind of working a little bit through my October TBR. I made a list of 9 books that I really wanted to get to this month at the beginning of the month, and as of right now I have not finished a single one of them, and I probably won't get to all of them. Just like being realistic, there is only like a week or so left in the month, but I thought it'd be fun to try and get to a few of them, especially kind of the spookier ones that I've been kind of reserving for this time of year. Now that midterms have kind of ended, I definitely have a little bit more time on my hands. I did want to start this reading vlog a couple days earlier, but I have been a little bit sick, so I do apologize if my voice sounds a little bit off. Right now I am currently reading 2 different books, which I'll definitely talk to you more about throughout the vlog. First is Dracula. This is a book my friend and I are buddy reading this month, and I was a little bit behind with the buddy read last week, so I'm catching up a little bit, but I'm continuing to really enjoy this. I think I'm enjoying it more the farther I get into it because we're getting all these different perspectives and different things are starting to connect, and I've just been really liking it. Our goal is to finish this by Halloween, so I will be continuing to read a little bit of this every day up until then. And then yesterday I ended up starting another book just to kind of have something else going with Dracula, and I decided to pick up Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is a book that was on my October TBR, and this is a book that I've been intrigued about for a long time. I've read quite a few other Leigh Bardugo books that I've really enjoyed, but I kind of always held off on reading this because I heard that it's quite dark, and that's not always the type of book that I like to read. But I started it yesterday. I'm like 40 pages into it now, and I'm really enjoying this so far, and I'm kind of getting the sense that I'm going to have a really good time reading this. I love how it's written so far. I love the setting of Yale, and the premise and the characters. Everything so far is very intriguing to me. So those are my 2 current reads and current plans. I do have class today, but tomorrow it's Friday. I don't have any class, and then it's the weekend, so hopefully this weekend we can do some good reading and then also maybe some other little activities, journaling and that sort of thing. But I hope you enjoy the reading vlog. I think right now I'm going to go get some breakfast, make a matcha, and probably read a little bit more of Ninth House and just have a really nice rest of the morning. Happy Sunday. It has been a couple of days since I first started out my reading vlog, and I do actually have quite a few updates for you specifically this weekend because I've been still sick. I've been spending a lot of time resting, a lot of time reading, and I've made some progress in both of these books that I'm excited to talk about. Okay, Dracula, I'm still loving this book. I feel like I can't say too much because I'm now about 3/4 into the book. I basically binged a bunch of this yesterday. I'm now all caught up with a buddy read, which is really good. And this book is so good. I feel like I've come to a really satisfying part of the story where things are really kind of starting to wind together. And I think one of my big takeaways from reading this so far is the importance of keeping a diary, because in this story, essentially the way that the characters are able to kind of figure out what's going on in terms of like vampires and Dracula, the way they're able to work together and kind of start going after this is because a lot of them kept diaries, and this whole book is essentially a record of different diaries, a little bit of like letters from one character to another, some telegrams, some newspaper articles. It's just a really fun kind of mixed media format, and it's making me very inspired to keep up with my journal more, because that's kind of what is the reason that these characters are able to figure out what's going on. So I'm really loving this, and I'm going to be finishing it up this next week, which will be a little bit sad, but I'm very excited to see how it's going to end. I feel like it could be a very high stakes, action-packed ending, but I guess we'll see. And then I have made a little bit of progress with Ninth House. I am about 130 pages into the book so far, and I was actually looking at some reviews for this book, not on purpose. I just kind of looked something up about the book, and I got taken to a Goodreads page about some reviews, and a lot of people were saying that the first 200 pages of this book is actually very confusing, and it starts to make sense a little bit more as the book goes on, and that definitely makes me feel a lot better because I'm really enjoying this book so far. I'm super engrossed in it, super interested in everything that's happening, but I'm also not fully sure what's going on. It kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think it's just a very interesting way to tell a story like this because our main character Alex has been seeing ghosts for her whole life, and it's actually caused a lot of really difficult things in her life. And when something bad happens, she ends up being contacted by this guy who basically agrees to give her a full ride scholarship to Yale to go study at Yale, and in return she will work for this secret society. Yale has 8 like supernatural kind of paranormal occulty secret societies, and the one that Alex is hired to start working for is called the Ninth House. So it's a secret society that's kind of specifically dedicated to making sure that the rest of the secret societies are following rules and not doing anything too dangerous. So we're kind of following Alex through different periods of time after she's come to Yale in different semesters as different things are happening, but the way that it's told is very kind of like back and forth, which I think was definitely an interesting choice. I think a typical story like this would have a kind of chronological plot in a way. Instead, we're kind of getting different flashbacks and flash forwards, and we know that some weird things have happened. We're not entirely sure what with the different characters, with the society. Also, the magic system doesn't really make a lot of sense yet either. Like, I feel like there isn't a whole lot of world building just yet, so it's very interesting, a little bit confusing, but I do feel like it is kind of starting to make a little bit more sense the farther that I'm getting into it. Overall, I think just a very unique story. It feels like it has, I don't know, it just is so fascinating. It is definitely a little bit dark, but in a way that I think is super interesting and super intriguing. So I'm continuing to really love this, and I'm definitely going to be continuing it today and for the next week. I think this is the perfect kind of spooky Halloween read. So those are my current reads. I did have more things that I wanted to do this weekend, but as I've mentioned, I have been sick, so I think I'm just going to take it easy. The bright side of being sick is it does mean lots of reading and resting time, so that's kind of my plan for today and for this next week, just to kind of take it easy. But hopefully as we get closer to Halloween, I can start doing some fun activities. Like, I really want to carve a pumpkin. I think that would be fun, and maybe do some journaling and other things like that. Okay, I thought we could end off this video with a little reading journal update slash journal with me as I update my book journal with some recent things, but also make a spread in my reading journal dedicated to Dracula, which I did end up finishing on Halloween actually, which was very fun. So I'll also give you a little book update on that because I never actually ended up filming another reading update for this vlog. Right now though, I'm kind of going and updating some of the older spreads in my reading journal. I often will wait until I have quite a few of these book covers to print out just so I can kind of all print them out on one page. So I'm kind of updating some of those beginning of the year spreads and recent reading wrap-ups and things like that. It's crazy to me that we are almost at the end of the year and almost at that time of the year where very soon I will be setting up my reading journal for 2026, which is very exciting but honestly a little bit disorienting too. Anyway, let's talk about Dracula because I finally did end up finishing this book, which is very exciting. I was reading it throughout the entire month of October as a buddy read with my best friend Lexi, as I've mentioned, and I think that I can say that Dracula by Bram Stoker is the perfect spooky read. It's not a horror book. I would not say that this book was really scary at all. Maybe a little bit suspenseful in some scenes, but not in a way I think that is really going to scare anyone in any way. I would not really call this a horror book actually. It also was not really gory or anything like that. It was more so just the atmosphere and the ambiance of this story that made it so spooky and gothic to read. And I actually think that ended up being one of my favorite parts of the book as a whole was the writing. With the spread that I'm making for Dracula, the main space I'm using to add some of my favorite quotes from the story, and I'll share those with you in a little bit. I just absolutely loved the writing in this book. I loved how intentional he was with every single word. The descriptions of specifically like the sky and nature and how that was kind of its own foreshadowing and symbol for the different kind of spooky things going on in the story, I absolutely loved. It was very easy to understand, I think, for the modern language, if that's something that maybe is holding you back from reading this story. If I didn't know based off of like historical context clues, I don't think I would have guessed that this book was written, I think, over 120, 130 years ago, because the language, though it does definitely have its own unique feel, is definitely very easy to understand. I think also this diary style format where you get lots of different perspectives was very unique and gave the story a very personal feel because you're getting to kind of see everything unfolding from these different characters' perspectives, and I think it makes you feel quite attached to the characters. I also really enjoyed the characters in this story, specifically the friendships and kind of found family group that's formed, which is something that I was not expecting to get out of this. There's a very serious, vampire problem going on that the characters are having to deal with, and the way that it kind of brings them together and how they end up caring for each other and working together, I really enjoyed. And my favorite characters I think definitely ended up being Mina, who's one of the main kind of diary characters, and Van Helsing. They were both very fun to read about and just very enjoyable characters overall. And then the plot itself I thought was also really fascinating and ended up being very satisfying to read actually. You kind of start out the book, not the very start of the book, but maybe more towards the middle of the book being just a little bit confused about why you're learning about certain things and why certain things are kind of feeling like they could be important, but you don't really understand how everything is going to weave together just yet. You're getting these different perspectives who at this time are kind of separated and dealing with all these different things. And then as you progress throughout the story, I'd say probably around the middle and onwards, everything starts to connect, and it all of course relates to vampires and Dracula and things that have happened at the very beginning of the book, and it just becomes such a fun journey where you're really wanting to know what's going to happen next. So a very gripping story too, one that I was really not expecting. I think that kind of sums up my thoughts for this book. It was really not what I was expecting in an entirely positive way. I also think that for the most part, it didn't feel too outdated, like the things that the characters are dealing with, and specifically kind of the view some of the characters have and the way that they kind of talk about women throughout the story definitely does feel like something that could have been written and thought about 130 years ago. But I think even that I would say wasn't even too extreme. Like I think for the most part, everything has aged very well and remains very kind of relatable and relevant to this day, which is a hard thing to do for a classic, I think, and kind of a good marker of a good classic when it has aged very well, even though it was written over 100 years ago. So basically, in summary, if you have ever been thinking about reading this book, I definitely recommend it. It's not too late, like you don't have to read it, during October. It's a really fun book to read, I think, anytime. Okay, let's talk about the journal spread that I'm making, and I'm actually so happy with how this turned out. I think it's been a while since I've made any journal spread that I've really enjoyed and had as much fun with as this one. I think just kind of leaning into the theme of it was particularly fun. I was very inspired by certain covers of the book and obviously just kind of that vampire red and black look. I didn't really use a whole lot of supplies. I mainly used different scrapbook papers, a black one, a red one, and this really cool spider one, which is actually the flip side to the other kind of spider design that I ended up using in my October book journal spread. I definitely have been loving these like very bright, fun colored papers and using them in my reading journal. I just love how vibrant they look and how much they pop, specifically against the black paper, and I love the way that the white pen looks against the black paper too. I started out by cutting out 2 pieces of the red scrapbook paper and kind of creating a little blood dripping effect along the edge. I've seen a lot of people do this in various different journal spreads throughout the years. I've never done it before, but of course it's the perfect thing to do for a vampire themed spread. And then with a black spiderweb paper, I just kind of ripped the corners, which is what I do very often in my journal. When I'm wanting to add scrapbook paper, I just like to add it to the corners. And I think that alternating effect of the black paper and the red drippy blood looked really, really cool as well. I enjoyed the composition of that as well. And then I think the main part of the spread, which I really loved, was the lettering. I knew I wanted to do some really fun gothic themed lettering for this spread. I found a font on Pinterest, I think, and I just used my white gel pen. This is the white Uniball Signo gel pen, by the way, and just drew out my gothic letters for the word of Dracula. And that was kind of the main part of the spread. I ended up layering some more paper for the book cover, added that to the opposite corner. I also added a couple of these Halloween stickers, some of the little bats and ghosts, which I thought were also really perfect for this spread. And then with the rest of the space, I added some quotes from the book, which I really loved. And that is pretty much it for my Dracula book spread. I love how it turned out. I think it's just very fun. Red and black and white always look very good together, I think.